Listen, I know you want some loving, but I gotta make these fire videos. If I'm not gonna make them, who is? Y'all ready to enjoy the show. What's up? Hey guys, how's it going? What's new? I am back. We're going to be making another video, and this one should be pretty interesting. A bunch of crazy stuff in the world, hopefully starting to come to a rest. It has been a crazy year or so, but why don't we go ahead and drop some knowledge. So in this video, I'm actually going to be removing my CPU, and I'm going to be lapping it, explaining how I lap it, showing you the process, and as well I'm going to be reapplying thermal grease in an effort to just overall reduce the temperatures on my CPU overall. There's really no rhyme or reason. It's if somebody's having heat issues, there's a million reasons of why somebody would do this. Me personally, I'm just kind of tinkering around with it, and I do have some good thermal paste to do it with, and what was on there from the factory might not have been as good as actually what we're putting on it today. So let's dig into it. So right here I have two programs open, Rogue CPU Z and as well hardware information. These two programs are going to allow us to basically bench where my performance on temperature sits before we actually do any modifications. You can see that graph is actually showing the temperature of my CPU in a live window. That Rogue CPU Z, all I did was hit the button for bench, and I'm benching it, so it's basically hitting it with full load. It's just giving it everything it's got, and I'm trying to max out the temperature here. And we'll just go ahead and note it looks like it's pretty tapered off. We're gonna say 68.5. Next, we got this GPU. This is the bee's knees of any build. 1660 Ti, GTX, Rogue Strix Edition, just like everything else in this computer. I love it. Let's get right into this RAM. 32 gigabytes. We're talking 3000 megahertz, DDR4, all 4 channels filled, dual channel. It definitely makes a difference when it comes to multitasking and some programs, video editing, whatever it is. Having all those dual channel and a decent amount of RAM helps. Over to the cooler, unloosening the bolts underneath. Now this is critical. You're gonna notice I'm not just gonna go and rip it off. I slowly twist it like it's a screw. I'm trying to break that connection in between the cooler and the CPU itself. There's grease that tends to dry up over time. So right there, it came free. Just unplugging wires and everything else. Here, you'll notice there's weird lines underneath it, and as well, the thermal paste application was very thin. But anyways, let's move on. Next, I'm gonna lift this lever up. It releases the CPU.
These pins are very fragile. Be careful.
Right here is the actual cooler itself. It's amazing how far these have come. You can see those fins in the middle. There's heat pipes that run through those fins that are filled with a special material or liquid. You can see there's 2 fans, one on each side, and that helps dissipate the heat as those heat pipes take heat up through those very thin fins. They're super efficient nowadays, and specifically this one that I have, I just have found it to be very efficient. That copper plate does such a good job at transferring heat from that processor into the rest of this specific setup. There's all sorts of different things you can do to keep components cool in your computer, including water cooling, but nowadays, air coolers have come such a long way. It's amazing. Well, in 5 trillion times the speed of sound, I am sanding this CPU. You'll notice I'm using different directions, kind of using figure 8 patterns, back and forth, up and down, trying to use even pressure as much as possible. You'll see each time that it removes, more and more, and I'm really trying to pay attention to how much I'm taking off and if any corner is showing any more or less copper than all the other corners. Some people are going to be clenching their teeth thinking that this is crazy, that they're super fragile, which they are, but if you use some common sense, it's that IHS is pretty thick. All I'm trying to do is remove a decent amount of that material. I'm not trying to remove all of it. If you go all the way through, you went way too far. It's pretty easy to tell. Right there, you can see we're just about down to all copper. Getting a lot closer. Couple more little scribby dibbies. Look at that. Beautiful. I think that's gonna do it, boys and girls. So now here you can see I'm pointing out there is a golden triangle on that CPU. You're gonna wanna make sure that it aligns with your socket, and some CPUs and sockets are different. Mine, I simply set it in there. It drops in on its own. If it doesn't go in, don't force it. Those pins are fragile, like I've already said. You can see it just fell in on its own. I did not have to push. After my funny hand gestures, you will see I will close that retention clip, or that lever, and that's what retains that CPU in its socket. This is the most controversial part of any CPU paste application. You'll see it all over the internet. Everybody has a different method. There are certain methods that come with manufacturers in the manual for your CPU of how to apply it. Personally, I've done tons of different ways over the years, and I think I'm going to try this compared to last time I spread it with an actual spreader. I think this way it's going to be a nice generous layer. Some people might cringe. I'm pretty sure it'll be just fine. At this point, we're just gonna go and slap this cooler back on it. Tighten up them bolts. I'll save you the pain because it was a nightmare. Don't forget to plug in the cables for your fans and LEDs. Binga banga boinga. RAM goes back in. Mind you, RAM is directional. They can only go one way. Don't force them. At the same time, when you do insert it, you will need to do one side at a time. I go click, click. You want to hear 2 distinctive clicks. Then you know that they are inserted properly. And the cream of the crop, throwing that big old brick back in there. So we're back to these tests. You can see I just go ahead and hit that bench. We're gonna let it ramp up and hit it as hard as we can. I'm using all the same settings, all the same boost clocks, all the same fan profiles as well. Super impressive. Look at this. We're just about plateaued already, sitting at 64 and a half. I'll call it 64 and a half to be safe. If you've ever been online watching any of these extreme PC enthusiast guys, the stuff they're doing is insane. They're jamming their computers full of electricity, bumping up the stats on them like crazy so they can output way more than what they're supposed to from the factory. And it is quite an interesting topic. The thing you got to keep in mind is more electricity, more performance equals more heat. So that's always going to be something you're going to have to combat. So as you can see, we did get a few degrees difference, which is pretty impressive for me. It's already an efficient cooler. It's got decent parts on it. I didn't expect it to go down all that much, but the fact that we got a 3 or 4 degree difference, that's crazy. All I did was take it apart, scrape some metal off it, and reapply better thermal paste, and it was literally free cost. I mean, the thermal paste I already had. So I spent $0. I reduced the temperatures on it by almost 4 degrees, which doesn't sound like much, but it is in the overall scheme of things. Being able to stay at a cooler rate or cooler temperature, you're going to be able to push more electricity and get more performance out of it. And there is a lot to this. This is the very basics of it. There's all sorts of silicon lottery that has to do with how far you're going to be able to push these things. The next video check out, that'll be about actually overclocking. We're going to be going into the BIOS when you start your computer up and actually going through some of those settings and what do they mean, which ones should I be looking at, which ones should I be worried about. So check that video out as soon as it drops. If you're not already subscribed, I would appreciate it if you could go down and subscribe. That way you can get some future videos. Don't be afraid to tell your friends, share it with anybody. I'd super appreciate it. The more views, the more better, as they say. So yeah, I'm glad you guys stuck through. I'm glad you guys checked this out. I hope you find it super interesting. This stuff is kind of my life. This is what I love doing. This is all the stuff that fascinates me. So it is what it is. I hope y'all are staying safe out there. Summer's coming up here. Things are gonna just hopefully slowly start getting back to some type of less of chaos type of living. Until then, stay safe, have fun, be real, love life. I'll see you next time.